Joe Anderson and Al Clopine of Pure Financial Advisors have the answers to your retirement plan. This is Your Money, Your Wealth.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Your Money and It's Your Wealth. My name's Joe Anderson, your host. I'm a certified financial planner, also president of Pure Financial Advisors. I'm with, as always, the big man, Big Al Clopine. He's right over there. First time watching the show, Pure Financial, we're a fee-only registered investment advisor. Al's a CPA. I'm a certified financial planner. And together, what we try to do is come up with topics and some ideas and strategies to make you better when it comes to your overall money. Now, when we're looking at today's show, got a great show lined up, is that most people want to become rich. But what does that really mean? Is it a dollar and cents? Is it happiness? So we're going to look at different strategies and different ways for you to become rich. That's what's on my mind today. So when you're thinking about it, I don't care if you're in your 30s, if you're in your 40s or 50s, or even your 60s, there's always time to do things a little bit better. So we're going to get into strategies to make sure that you can find that happiness. Imagine that you are retired and you're not worrying about clipping coupons, that you can do all the things that you ever dreamed of. To get us into the show, let's bring in the big man in right now. Big Al Clopine, welcome. So most people want to become rich, right?
They sure do, yeah.
And so what do people have to do to become rich? Let's bring the big man in to figure this stuff out.
Well, first of all, I want to know what's your perception of being rich? What do you want to do?
Well, I guess I want to be happy.
I want to be happy.
But I think money, that drives happiness to some degree.
Yes.
But it's not necessarily, is it $5 million or is it $1 million? I think it's a certain dollar figure that people need to achieve, so they don't necessarily have to worry about money, because that's one of the biggest worries that people have. They don't necessarily want to be a burden on anyone. They don't want to die before they run out of money.
They run out of money, yeah. And that's actually probably one of the biggest fears that we hear, is not so much about fear of dying, but fear of running out of money. So today we're going to talk about how to retire rich. This is really, I think, a fun topic to talk about, because we all want to be rich, and whatever that means to you. It doesn't mean traveling, doesn't mean more leisure time, but there's really 4, I would say, golden rules of becoming rich. And number 1 is your income potential. In other words, how much can you earn over your lifetime, and how can you maximize that? So we'll get into that. Number 2 is your spending. Do you have your spending under control? And I'm not talking about clipping coupons and living on a shoestring, because you want to enjoy your life as you go. But there's some real strategies on spending and saving too. How much do you need to save to be able to retire appropriately? And then once you have the investments, how should you be investments? You got the saving. Now what do you do to be able to parlay that into something that's going to be meaningful in retirement? And Joe, this really is kind of a fun topic. It's all about making sure that you can do the things you want to do in retirement.
Yeah, but it's simple, but it's not easy.
Right, I would say that's true.
Right, and a lot of the things that we're going to discuss today is not necessarily, all right, well, here, let's go about doing it tomorrow, because the concepts are simple, but actually implementing and putting them into action is something very different. And there's a lot of concerns out there. So we go out to the street from time to time to ask you, our listeners and our viewers, of what's really on your mind and what concerns do you have. I think we have a clip right now.
How do you determine how you should handle your money when you don't know how long you're going to live?
Well, that's the golden rule, right? I mean, if we know, here's the problem, right?
Yeah.
When you're accumulating money, so let's say Alan said, I'm 55, I want to retire at 65.
Yeah, we got 10 years.
You got 10 years. There's a known time frame. Now,
Sure.
Alan turns 65. There's an end date, right, that Alan has, but he shouldn't know that end date, right? If you do, I really don't want to know you. I don't want to be sitting next to you.
Well, there's fortune tellers out there. Maybe
yeah, but that's death. It could be 1 year, it could be 3 years, 5 years, 15 years, 30 years. That's why it's a lot more challenging from a retirement income standpoint, because you don't know how long your money's going to last. Now, of course, I mean, if you're diagnosed with a terminal illness and things like that, but if you have normal life expectancy, you should plan on having your money last until age 90, because people are living a lot longer than ever before.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And even maybe age 95, sometimes in some cases age 100. But Joe, let's get right into this. Let's get into what you need to do to make sure that you retire rich. And this is kind of a fun topic. So let's start with maximizing your income potential. So number 1 is, depending upon your field, can you get credentialed? And if you can get credentialed, make sure you do that because that equates to increased salary. Obviously, stay current in your field. And this is something that, all right, I'm a computer programmer, I'm an accountant, I'm whatever, but things are changing all the time. So you want to stay current, and that's what's going to help you with your income potential. Working longer is obviously another one. Sometimes when you work just 2 or 3 more years than expected, it makes a huge difference in your retirement. And for many of us, working part-time in retirement is going to be a way to go, not only because it'll provide additional income for us, but it'll give us something to do in retirement. So I think, Joe, why don't we talk about working longer? We've got an example here that kind of illustrates, if you do work longer, what it means to your bottom line and your investments.
This is a very simple strategy that everyone can implement because people should take a look at, all right, what age should I retire? Is it 55? Is it 65? Is it 70? It could be a little bit longer. If you go back into just maybe 10, 15 years ago, the golden age was that people wanted to retire at 55 or 60 at the latest. Now you look at the recent studies, people will be lucky if they could retire at age 70. So let's just take a look at a couple of different numbers here. So here's what we illustrated, is that if I retire at age 50, and then, so if you look when you started investing, we just assumed 35 years of age across the board, and you save $10,000 annually, okay? We also assumed a 7% growth rate. So I started at age 35, I saved $10,000 per year, and assume a 7% growth rate on that $10,000. If I want to retire early, given that scenario, right, I would have accumulated about $250,000. $250,000 will not create a ton of retirement income for you, so then you might want to look at, all right, well, hey, maybe I push that off to my normal retirement age. 65, 66, in some cases 67. So just for illustration purposes, everything remained equal, but they worked another 15 years and they saved that other $10,000 per year over that 15-year time period. And now, boom, look at that. They almost have $1 million saved. So just from retiring from 50 to age 65, that 15-year period put a lot more money in the bank account. Now let's assume that they love their job, they want to continue to work, or they want to have a little bit more security in their retirement. They push their retirement out to age 70. If you look here, now they have $1.4 million. Now, here's something that most people don't realize. Look at this, from age 65 to 70. Their account balance went from $950 to $1.4 million. That's a huge thing. Just by extending your retirement just a little bit longer, it's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And if you double these numbers, if you can save $20,000 per year, it's roughly double. And in some cases, maybe you're going to start saving earlier, some cases later. The point, though, is the earlier you start, the better. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is spending. And this is something that we have a certain amount of control over. And when you look at your spending, there's a couple rules of thumb to help yourself. And number one is a concept called pay yourself first. And that just simply means that whatever you want to save, make sure that happens first before you receive your net paycheck. It's really easy to do through your 401k. We recommend that you really spend no more than 90% of your income, which means that you're saving at least 10%. And here's another big one, is use cash for consumer goods. Don't use credit cards. If you can't pay cash, you probably can't afford it yet.
Oh, so come on, Al. Everyone likes to put things on credit, right?
That's my fatherly comment for you today.
So let's look at this, because if you take a look at the average savings rate for years, it was negative. People spent way more than what they earned because, you know what, you can just tap into your house, have that home equity line, or Big Al was just talking about credit cards. So let's assume that you save 5% of your income. So here we go again with the chart here, 95%, so that means a 5% spending rate. Your retirement age at 65, again, we assume that you started investing or saving at age 35 with that. Now your annual salary of $100,000. So if you're saving 5% of that, okay, at 7%, you would achieve about close to $500,000. That's your future balance. So if you spend only if you save only 5% of that income. Now let's say, hey, let's boost up the savings a little bit. Let's save 10% of that $100,000 or $10,000 per year versus $5,000 per year. Now you're looking at doubling $950,000 just by saving only 10% of your income. There's other countries that save close to 30% of their income. We're just looking at, hey, if you save 5 or 10%, now let's get super aggressive here. I know this is crazy, but let's assume that you saved now 15% of your income or only spent 85% of the gross. 1.4 million again, looks like a pretty good number to retire on. It's just little tweaks in your overall situation that can add a ton of money to your bottom line. Hey, we got to take a break. Don't go anywhere. When we get back, we're going to get through different examples, right? We're looking at how to get rich. It's not rocket science. All it is a little bit of discipline, a little bit of know-how, and then just putting things through the asset test. Do I want to put this on the credit card, or maybe I should convert that and save that into my Roth IRA or 401k? It adds up to be a pretty big number. Don't go anywhere. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. Hey, welcome back to the program. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. My name's Joe Anderson, certified financial planner with Alan Clopine. Of course, he's a CPA. Talking about getting rich. How do you become rich? You got to save a little bit of money, I guess, when you're looking at the richness of your checking account or bank account, but there's also different things that you want to consider. Before we dive in, let's get back to the true-false. How you did there, Big Al?
If I work part-time in retirement, my Social Security benefits will always be reduced.
That's false.
That's false. It's not always. Sometimes. I mean, if you retire early, well, that's age 62 to full retirement age, which is currently 66. Well, yeah, you'll have a reduced Social Security, but after that, it doesn't matter. You can work as much as you want. You will get full Social Security benefits.
Yeah, you got to reach full retirement age before you can work. I think if you work at age 62 and you collect, if you make more than $15,800, every $2 earned, they take $1 back.
Right.
But Alan writes these true-false questions, if you haven't known, and he always, well, then he points it out to me at the break. He goes, it says always.
I know, because I don't want you to look like a dope. Because you get this always no.
I mean, it's like the GMAT. Or,
you notice how I emphasize for your own benefit.
Right,
always,
like, yes,
always.
Anytime it says always, that means it's false.
It's hard, yeah, it's almost always false.
So,
all right, let's get into it.
Let's talk about saving some money. Not always save money. How about that?
All right, so we get this question all the time. I know we want to save, but what's the order? What should we save? Where should we save first? Here's what we're going to recommend for you. Start with an initial emergency fund. Make sure you have a couple $1,000, maybe $3,000. That's step number one. Step number two is if you have a 401k that has a match, then contribute up to the match. A lot of you have maybe a 3% match. Your first 3% of contribution is matched by your company. Make sure you do that because that's free money. Then after that, go back to your emergency fund. You probably want to have about 3 to 6 months of expenses. Now, once you're done with that, consider a Roth contribution if you qualify. It's subject to certain income levels, and if you're above about $191,000, you can't do a Roth contribution. Married, $129,000 single, you can't do a Roth contribution. But if you can, go ahead and do that. Then go back to your employer, fill out the rest of your 401k, $17,500 per person or $23,000 if you're over 50. Then finally after that, if you have extra money, then save in non-retirement accounts. That's really the best order to make your savings.
So let's talk about this. Is that all right? Well, let's say if you don't have any money saved at all, of course you want to make sure that you have some cash reserves,
Absolutely.
right? That's a big thing, because what we see as a cycle is that if you don't have any cash, you always go back to the credit cards, and then when you go on the credit cards and you go back to cash, and it's this vicious cycle. So yeah, Danny, I'm trying to go over there, buddy. You saw me. I was working it. And so then the problem is all right, well, here, should I just go into the 401k plan? And what we're seeing right now is that, all right, well, everyone just saved in the 401k plan. It's very easy to do that. You just check a box. But here's what we're suggesting. Outside of your cash reserves, start with the 401k just to the match. Then go to the Roth IRA because you want both. You want the Roth IRA and you want the 401k plan because of how they're taxed on the distribution. Because you can get tax-free income out of a Roth IRA, then it's taxable income out of the 401k. What we see today is that most retirees have most of their money built up in these 401k plans where every last dollar is taxed at ordinary income rates. Now, as you're saving right now, you want to make sure that you mix and match.
Mix and match?
Mix and match them so that you can, this is live television.
TV, huh?
So that you can have a tax strategy when it comes to taking income out. It's a huge deal. But here's the problem, is that you have to start. You have to start now. Most people procrastinate when it comes to their overall savings.
Well, that's exactly right. And think about this. The earlier you start, the better. And so if you're 30 years old, get started now. If you're 25, even better. But you know what? If you're 40, you're 50, even 60, it's not too late. We're going to illustrate the concept here of compounding interest The sooner you start, the better, obviously, clearly, but it's never too late to start.
All right, so let's say if you start saving money at age 30, okay, so this is ideal, right? I mean, you should start saving money with your first paycheck, but no one does that because retirement is like 200 years from now. Most people really start focusing on their savings probably in their late 40s and 50s is what we find. But let's say that you're a younger viewer, and so start now. If you're in your 30s, start socking money away. Because if you save $10,000 a year and you start at age 30, by the time you turn 65, you got $1.5 million. That's a huge nest egg. Now let's say you procrastinate, you wait until age 40, okay? So you waited 10 years. Now what the problem is that now you only have $630,000 if I kept everything equal, saving the $10,000 per year at a 7% growth rate. Now, if you wait until age 50, okay, so now here's your nest egg, $250,000. The point of the conversation is it's always better to start early, but it's never too late to start. I don't care if you're 30 years old, 40 years old, or 50 years old, start saving now. Again, the order is that you want to save up to the match of your 401k if you do have one, then switch to the Roth, fill that up, and then go back to the 401k and fill that up. That will give you the tax diversification that you need when it comes time to taking distributions. Al?
Yeah, Joe, we get this question all the time, though. You know what, though? I'm age 50, and I really haven't done anything, and you're just showing me that maybe I can only save $250,000, and that may not be enough. Well, consider this. We don't have an illustration, but let's just say you're able to double that. So instead of saving $10,000 per year, you're saving $20,000 per year. And then the second thing is, what if we work till age 70 instead of 65? Now all of a sudden you have over $800,000. Now your retirement looks pretty good. And remember, you may be saying, well, I don't want to work till age 65. Well, maybe you can work part-time from 65 to 70 or whatever it may be to supplement the retirement. So there's a lot of things you can do, even if you're in your 50s and you haven't really started.
So you want to focus on the things that you can control. The amount of money that you save into the overall account is something that you can control. Another thing that you have to take a look at is how is the assets allocated. So if I have all my money sitting in cash, okay, so that's a rate of return. So I might be only getting 1 or 2%. If I have a globally diversified portfolio, then I could achieve maybe anywhere from 4 to 7% return, really depending on the markets. But over the long term, the stock market, the bond market, the real estate market creates a ton of wealth if you know what you're doing. So Al, why don't you go to the slide and prep me up here before I get into this illustration?
Yeah, because what we're getting to is investing matters. How you're invested matters. And here's a couple things to consider. You do need to take a little bit of risk. That means you need to have some money in the stock market. Because if you're just in CDs and T-bills, you're going to get a very low rate of return, and you're not going to get to where you want to get. You do want to diversify. Diversification is key. Have some stocks, some bonds, some international stocks, some domestic stocks, small companies, large companies, and so forth. You want to make sure you control your costs, because when you're investing inside of those investments, mutual funds have very high internal costs. Index funds have very low costs, so you do better in index funds. And then finally, be mindful of income taxes, because taxes will generally take more away from your portfolio than the market will. But let's look at what you could save at various rates of interest, Joe.
Here, I'm going to look at two different things. All right, so here we go. Let's say you start investing again at age 30, you're going to retire at age 65, and then you're saving again this $10,000 a year into the overall plan. All right, so if you get a 2% growth rate on that overall account over that time period, you're going to have $500,000. All right, so yeah, $500,000 is a really good number, but could it be higher? Because here, 2%, you're probably investing in T-bills, treasuries, government bonds, something very, very safe. Preservation of capital is key, but as you're accumulating wealth, you can take on some risk, but you want to make sure that it's measured risk, that it's compensation that you're receiving for the risk that you're taking. So now let's assume that you receive 5% on the overall portfolio. Everything remain equal, that $500,000 almost doubles, $900,000. Now let's see if you get a 7% growth rate. That $900,000 turns to 1.4. I'm going to piggyback on what Al said when it comes to controlling cost. A lot of you are in high cost investment strategies that could cost you anywhere from 1 to 2%. Let's just assume that you're taking on the same risk, but you're paying 2% in fees. that could be a difference here of $500,000 that's going to the brokerage house. So there's a lot of things that you want to make sure that you can control, but you can control the amount of money that you save, you can control your risk, you control your taxes. That's what this is all about. If you want to get rich, just look at the simple things. Keep it really simple, control it, then that's going to give you the discipline that you need long term when things get hairy in the overall markets. Don't go anywhere. We got a lot more to discuss. We're going to take your email questions, and I don't know what else is in store. So you got to figure it out. Stick around. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. Hey, welcome back to the program. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. My name's Joe Anderson. I'm a certified financial planner with Clopine. And, you know, what I want to do is just, Al, let's just recap a couple of different things here of the entire show, because what we're trying to do is to help educate you on, you know, simple moves that you can make in regards to your finances that can make you rich. And, you know, rich is kind of a silly word because rich means a lot of things to a lot of different people. But I think at the end of the day, if you follow some of these golden rules, you're going to have more money, and within that, you can do more things.
I think so too. And this is a summary of what we talked about. So number one is make sure you maximize your income potential. And we talked about that, if you can get credentialed or if you want to stay current in your job and so forth. Number two would be spend no more than 90% of your income. Less if you can, but try to save 10% of your income because that'll make a huge difference in retirement. Certainly save early. And if you haven't saved, catch up if you're starting late. If you're 50, 55, even 60, make sure you do as much as you can right now to try to get caught up. And then certainly get educated on appropriate investments. There's a lot of good investments out there. There's a lot of really poor investments. So make sure you get the right ones.
Right. You want to control the things that you can't control, and a couple of other things. You know, some of the most wealthiest people didn't make hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. You know, if you ever watch or read the book Millionaire Next Door, I highly encourage it, because if you take a look, most people just spent less than what they made, and they saved a little bit of money, and then they had that discipline. So it's not like here you need to make $400,000 a year to become rich. You can become rich with any income that you want as long as you have a plan in place and have that discipline long term to save. Let's go to the true false. Let's see how you did here. Al?
If I save $13 per day starting at age 25, I'll be a millionaire when I retire at age 65.
See,
given a 7% rate of return.
Well, I think that's true.
There's
no always in there, but here, this is all you got to do to become rich. Just get a time machine, go back in time till you're 25 years of age, and save $13 a day.
Yeah, that's all you got to do.
That's all you
very
got.
Simple.
That's all you got to do.
Very simple.
You know, some of this stuff, you know, when you look, hindsight's always 20/20. It's like, oh man, you know, yeah, of course, if I want to go back in time and save a couple of extra bucks. I guess the point is this, is that if your kids aren't watching this, because Al and I do a radio show, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, it's called Your Money, Your Wealth, but it's not on TV, it's on the radio. And we talk about different strategies, and most of the people that listen to the show are already retired or close to retirement. So what we're trying to do is have kind of a mixed bag. Get younger people involved to make sure that they start saving some money, because like the true false thing said, if you save 13 bucks a day, you can have a lot of money. Let's go to the email question and then wrap this show up, Al.
All right, this is from Anita, Santa Ana. I have about $20,000 in credit card debt. Should I pay off the debt first before saving into my company 401k, or should I start contributing to the 401k? Very common question. A lot of people have credit card debt. So we're going to actually go back to a slide that we did last segment, which talked about the order of saving. And as a reminder, and it's going to be here in a second, but number one is make sure that you have an initial emergency fund of maybe $2,000, $3,000. That's your starting point. And then number two would be your 401k match. You want to do that because your employer is going to match that. You're going to get free money. After that is when you start paying off your credit card debt. Make sure that's all paid off, and then you can get to your emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses. Then you're off and running. You can do the Roth contribution, you can do the 401ks, and so forth.
Well, I mean, that's a hard question, because I mean, if you're running $20,000 of credit card debt, you got to take a look at, all right, well, what rate, what interest rate are they charging you? Because that's a vicious cycle that people get into.
It is.
And then just trying to pay off the interest alone is very challenging. So you you have to give a pretty good strategy of start chipping away at that credit card. But the problem is that you just don't want to focus at chipping everything away at the credit card and ignoring your savings. Another question that we get too is that, all right, well, here, should I put off my retirement and then pay for college education? Well, that's a tough thing to look at too, because if you're in an airplane, the airplane goes down, what do they always tell you to do? Put your mask on first and then help your kids. That's the same concept when it comes to saving money. I know that was kind of a stupid analogy, but I thought I'd throw it in there. We only have 15 seconds left. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. We're back again next week. For Big Al Clopine, my name's Joe Anderson. You just watched Your Money, Your Wealth. Next week, we're going to get into more fun stuff on how to make a little bit more money, save some money in tax, and grow your wealth even larger. Have a great weekend, everyone.